What if I told you there's a Swiss watch brand with a longer history than Patek Philippe, but it costs 90% less? A watch company not too far away from Patek Philippe with a 195-year history of watchmaking with excellence in craftsmanship, with incredible designs and perfect proportions. Now that sounds a lot like Patek Philippe, but what if I told you that you could literally buy one of their watches for less than the price of this iPhone? Which is why today we're going to be talking about one of the most criminally underrated brands out there, Baume Mercier. And we're going to explore how Baume Mercier could be the gateway to a piece that has kind of that Patek Philippe spirit without the impossible price tag. Now, to really appreciate and understand Baume Mercier, we really need to go back to the 1830s when the company first started, a full 9 years before Patek Philippe even started. And the whole story of Baume Mercier starts in this small Swiss village where two brothers, Louis Victor and Celestin Baume, opened a watch dealership with a simple motto: accept only perfection, only manufacture watches of the highest quality. Now, this wasn't a marketing slogan like most of the brands use today. It was more of a mission statement. It was a purpose. It was something to keep the brand focused over the long term and always help them remember what they truly believe in and who they are. And very quickly, the Baume family became very well known for being very exceptional in the world of watchmaking. They were making watches that were so much more complicated and so much more accurate than a lot of other watches that were out there. And the best thing is they weren't just making watches that were beautiful to look at, they were creating movements and complications that were really pushing the boundaries of horology and engineering back in the day. Now, by the end of the 19th century, their reputation had grown far beyond Switzerland, and they started to kind of expand into other areas such as London, India and Australia to connect with more customers and to really grow their brand and presence. And during this time, they started to win a lot of awards for their timepieces and also the precision of their complications. Now, the Baume Mercier that we know today was actually formed in 1918 when a genius watchmaker, William Baume, met the incredible designer, Paul Mercier, and together they established Baume Mercier and really started to craft new watches around the brand's updated DNA. And together in Geneva, they really started to carve out a place in the world for Baume Mercier to really help them stand out and also continue that focus on excellence whilst also trying to keep the watches affordable. Now, they chose Geneva because back in the day, that's where the best watchmakers were. It was basically the case that if you wanted to become the very best in watchmaking and you wanted to really perfect the craft and become a very respected person in that particular area of work, you needed to go to Geneva because that's where all the exciting things were happening. Now, this is where William and Paul really kind of merged together and harmonized so well because William knew the watchmaking side of things and he could really create these incredible complications and he could craft these watches that were accurate and precise and very beautifully crafted from the inside. And then Paul's job was to ultimately work with that to create something that was aesthetically pleasing. And this is where Paul really started to kind of understand how to merge and harmonize form with function. He understands that yes, a watch needs to be accurate, it needs to be able to do its job and tell time properly, but it also needs to look the part. It needs to make a statement from a visual standpoint. And that's why if you look at any Baume Mercier watch, you can see that it is very intentional in regards to how classic and how minimalist and long-lasting the designs are. They are designs that are never going to go out of fashion. And that is where the comparison between Baume Mercier and Patek Philippe come into play. Because if you look at a watch like the Calatrava, for example, from Patek Philippe, you see the proportions, you see the design that was ultimately crafted by Patek Philippe over 100 years ago. That exact same DNA for a dress watch is still very prevalent today. And if you look at Baume Mercier and you look at the Patek Philippe kind of lineup of watches, you can see some similarities in regards to the designs and how they look. Now, you might be thinking, okay, we've got another Swiss watch company with another great history, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same thing. I've heard it all before. But let's just take a step back for a second and look at some of the other watches that are out there and when Baume Mercier introduced their watches, which are slightly similar. So for example, in 1972, we all know the story of how Audemars Piguet introduced the Royal Oak into the watch market. And then a couple of years later, Patek Philippe followed up with the Nautilus. Now, did you know that in 1973, just 1 year after the Royal Oak, Baume Mercier introduced their own watch into the market called the Riviera. Now, with its unique 12-sided bezel and integrated bracelet, the Riviera was a bold, confident statement of modern design. And it kind of proved that although Baume Mercier wanted to be part of the conversation with this whole kind of steel sports watch in the world of luxury trend that was going on, that whole wave, they wanted to also have their own unique way of saying things. They didn't want to just follow the trend and just copy. They wanted to have their own way and do things in a way that they felt was right. Now, of course, I think it's fair to say that the Patek Philippe Nautilus is far more popular than the Riviera. Maybe you didn't even know that that watch existed before just now. However, that shouldn't discount the fact that the Baume Mercier Riviera was there first, and also it is also arguably more unique than the Nautilus, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It's kind of down to personal preference, but you know, it's worth saying. So the real question is, where does that leave us today with Baume Mercier? And you know, are they worth checking out? Are they worth considering as an investment in regards to your watch collection? There is very little, in my humble opinion, between a watch that Baume Mercier can offer and a watch that Patek Philippe can offer. It's mostly the brand. In my humble opinion, I'm allowed to have my opinion, okay? Even if objectively you might think I'm wrong, I don't think that me personally would miss much about a Patek Philippe that I can't get from a Baume Mercier, and it costs like, you know, 90% less. In some cases, obviously that differs depending on the model that you're actually getting, but you know, if you want a timeless, year-round dress watch that is incredible in terms of design, perfect in terms of proportions, beautifully made, is going to last the test of time, like the Calatrava, for example. If you're wanting to buy the Calatrava, you should definitely consider Baume Mercier, 110%. In fact, forget about the Calatrava. Calatrava is, I think personally, not great value for money, unless you're eventually wanting to climb up and get the Nautilus or the Aquanaut. It might help you get a nice little relationship with the AD. But ultimately, even if you look at watches like the Clifton from the Baume Mercier range, you have a watch that is powered by an incredible in-house movement which boosts a 5-day power reserve and high anti-magnetism. It's technically very, very good for the price that you're actually paying. And again, it has everything that you need to have a watch that looks beautiful and is also going to last a very, very long time. And you also have 195 years worth of experience going into that watch to make it the watch that it is today. And even if you prefer a watch like the Cubitus, for example, check out the Hampton. The Hampton's a very nice alternative. Now they have different sizes. I think they do one for women and one for men, but check out that watch because it may not be as fancy as a Cubitus. It might not have a micro rotor, but it looks very nice. It's simple, it's elegant. It is designed very, very well. That's one thing that I can speak about. I can tell when a watch is beautifully designed from an aesthetic standpoint. And again, you can probably argue that that's my personal opinion, but also as well, design has certain rules. Sometimes they can be broken, but most of the time they should be kind of held in place quite protectively. Because when you go away from those particular guidelines, the watches can sometimes become a little bit too fun, a little bit too crazy. But again, my personal standpoint, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, that's just my personal opinion. So in conclusion, am I trying to say that Baume Mercier is a Patek Philippe? No, of course not. I'm not saying that at all. And if anything, they actually came before Patek Philippe. So if anything, Patek Philippe's copying them. But if you want to buy a watch which was made in the heart of Switzerland, which is incredible value for money and is really going to last you the test of time, then I think Baume Mercier is probably going to be worth checking out. It has the deep, authentic Swiss heritage. It has an elegant and well thought out design language. And for the last 195 years, they've basically had an unapologetic focus on creating watches that are of the highest quality. I think what Baume Mercier represents to me personally, as someone who just loves watches and horology, is a brand that really appreciates quality, but also who provides the market with an option that is incredible value for money. They're kind of like the intelligent choice. Like, not that I'm saying that people who buy Patek Philippe's or Rolexes are not intelligent, but I feel like they are just for someone who really wants to get the best bang for their buck. And I think they're just at that perfect price point where, depending on the piece obviously that you're going to buy, where you can save up for a couple of months and just, you know, have the money put away so that when you reach that milestone or you achieve that thing and you want to buy yourself something to kind of commemorate that moment in your life, you can just buy it without the guilt of saying, you know, I've spent, you know, 5,000 on the watch, but the extra 10,000 was just for the brand name. There's something about that, especially as someone who has worked with a lot of brands in the past. I kind of see that brand name value. I kind of see the whole idea of paying more for a brand just because of the actual name on the dial as opposed to the actual product itself a little bit silly, in my humble opinion. But again, what do you think? What is your opinion? Have you ever came across Baume Mercier before? What do you think about everything in this video? Do you agree with me? Do you think that I am just talking complete nonsense? Let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to discuss with you. And as always, I will see you in the next one. See you soon.